Welcome to the WordPress Photography Podcast, the podcast for photographers who want to learn how to get the most out of WordPress to grow their photography business. You don't need to be a geek to understand WordPress. Settle back and listen as we show you how. Now, here's your host, Scott Wyden-Kipowitz.
Welcome to episode 115. My name is Scott Wyden-Kipowitz, and today I'm joined by my guest, Marika Moffitt. Marika is a story-driven pet photographer serving pets and their people in the greater Seattle area and beyond. And as the owner of Dirtie Dog Photography, Marika focuses on helping her clients stay connected to the animals they love by celebrating their stories in portraits. When she isn't spending her time behind the camera capturing stories of animals for the people who love them, Marika is hard at work creating new ways to connect and collaborate with her community of pet-loving people. She has built her business focused on the ability to give back to her community through working with local rescue organizations and creative collaborations with other pet-friendly businesses in the greater Seattle area. She's also the founder of Seattle Pet Collective, a podcast sharing the stories of people who are doing great work within the Seattle pet community. So there might be another podcast for you to check out. And she is the co-founder and producer of the Limelight Pet Project, a multimedia campaign shining the light on harder to adopt pets and the people who care for them. So Marika, we had to pivot and shift just to get on this recording. Oh boy. Yeah. So we got some stories to share before we even dive in. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I mean, my day started super early. This is my Tuesdays are a busy day for me. So, I mean, I'm not surprised there was a little hiccup, but we're here for it.
We are. Yeah. So for everybody listening, watching, this is part of the Pivot and Shift mini-series. And I'm really excited about this topic, about talking with Marika about this and to get some of her insights about what's been going on with her and how she had to pivot and shift and whatnot. But before we do that, just to share a little bit of the backstory about just how perfect it is that this is the topic we're talking about today. When we were first scheduling, I don't know what was going on in my day, but I just constantly, I said, okay, this day and time works, this day and time works. And we just kept going back and forth and I kept screwing up. And so I think it was like 3 or 4 times where it's finally like, locked it in. It's it. No more changing. And it was all my fault. And so that was yeah. So that was the first. And then the second was, so we've been using Zencastr to record our podcast episodes because of the amazing audio quality they give you with your remote listeners, remote guests rather. And Zencastr has a beta now where they allow video recording, and it's also remote video recording. So you get pretty good quality video. And for whatever reason, her computer is blocking the beta, but not the regular audio only recording. So we moved over to Ecamm Live beta, which now lets me to bring in guests. And this is the first time we're recording an episode in Ecamm Live. So I'm hoping things go well. We had to pivot and shift just to get this episode recorded. So we are here for you people. Oh boy. So first question I have for you on this topic, and we're going to dive deeper into this as we get through this conversation. But if you can give the listeners a brief summary of what your photography business was like before the pandemic and how you shifted, just a little summary, because we are going to dig into this.
Yeah, so I started 2020 off with some really big ideas of what I was going to be doing, especially in springtime. Springtime is my favorite time of year to photograph pets here in Seattle. It's just the flowers are beautiful. It's just that fresh spring air. Everybody's just so happy. And unfortunately, things did not turn out the way that I had planned. So I had to think on my feet about, well, am I going to shrink from this? Am I going to hide away? Or am I going to jump in and create new opportunities to lead my community and create ways for them to connect through sharing their pet stories? And so that's what I did. I didn't even really rest. I just immediately was like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. And went from trying to schedule sessions and events to, okay, what can we do online? How can we come together and share the things we love, which is our pets?
So out of curiosity, before all this, were you doing more studio indoor or the family's houses indoor sessions with the pets?
Yeah. So in the winter, I definitely do more studio work, and I actually work in my clients' homes or sometimes set up in my house. So that I had no more of that.
Right. So
my last session before all of this happened was actually on March 15th, and it was a studio session in my home. And then it was about 4 months before I was able to do another session.
Wow. And now pretty much, would you say that 100% or close to it are our outdoor sessions?
Yep, 100%.
Wow. That is a big change for somebody who is used to doing things indoors and not having to worry about the elements outside. Because not only are you worrying about the people with with outfit changes, nice to throw on a sweatshirt or a jacket and that changes everything. But now certain pets don't do so well outside, especially if they're not accustomed to it. So that's tricky.
And I also, I actually just ordered a bunch of rain gear for myself and my equipment. So, because we're in that season.
Right. Yes. Seattle. Pretty rainy. I had the pleasure of going to Seattle once. And it was a lot of fun. I think we lucked out and it didn't rain the entire time we were in Seattle. But then once we started going up to the Palouse region, that's when we got some rain there. But so financially, and you don't have to give exact numbers, whatever you want to share, how impacted were you before you? I know you said you didn't stop, right? You went right into figuring out what to do, but did you feel it? Did you feel that any impact on that with that financially?
Oh yeah, definitely. That chunk of time that I wasn't able to actually take photographs of clients and their pets that's a prime time for me. So I definitely felt the financial downfall in that part, but then, because of the work that I did in my community and with my audience, when the time came to be shooting again, people were ready and they stepped up, and things have been really great in the last 3 months.
Awesome. And so what made you think of, or did you already have in the back of your mind, of all these projects that you've been building, the podcast and the collabs, and what did you already have those that like you wanted to do eventually, or was talking with clients and colleagues and whatnot, family, did that push you there? Like, how'd that come about?
Yeah, so I actually had the podcast. I started it in spring of last year, and I've had a couple really big traumatic things happen in my life over the past 6 years that sort of built my resiliency and my ability to shift easily. So the podcast was the result of one of those things. I sort of reached a point where I realized, anything can happen at any time to us, and there's no point in waiting on the things that we really want to do and create. And so that's what the podcast was. The Limelight Pet Project, we launched in August of 2019. So that's something that was already in existence when the pandemic hit. The things that I ended up pivoting my business for specifically this year were things that I think I always thought about doing, but I was really just pushed forward into them a lot sooner than I thought. But apparently I was ready because everything worked out great.
And with the things like the podcast, did you find ways to monetize it enough to help with any income loss that you had with the photography side?
So we're not currently monetizing the podcast. What we're mostly just doing right now is just connecting the people in our community with businesses and nonprofits, and just anybody who has a great story about pets or something they can bring some sort of value to our community.
have you considered reaching out to local mom and pop pet stores that are hurting and saying, for $500, we'll plug you for this one episode and thank you for your support and blah, blah, blah,
Yes, that's definitely on the vision for 2021 is to reach out to some businesses in the area who might be interested in that.
Yeah, you could even go as far as saying, you're hurting as much as as much as I'm hurting. I started this podcast because I loved the whole, pet community and whatnot. I'm sure you got a whole spiel, but then also say because you're hurting, if it's $500 to sponsor one episode, I'll throw in the first one for free because we know, we want to help you too, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like give them, make them feel like they're getting something more, out of it,
Yeah.
which is nice. If you went to, as the podcast gets bigger, you could probably go to something like a PetSmart or a Petco or one of these massive chains, but they're not hurting as much as these mom and pop shops, just like you, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and that actually goes against our values of supporting local, because a lot of my guests are those local small businesses. When I started the podcast, it was really I wanted to help my fellow business owners and nonprofits by giving them an opportunity to share their story, because we all, we can go to a website and learn on an About Me page, but there's really something beautiful about listening to a conversation that includes a story, somebody's story of why they do what they do, and just giving them the opportunity, because a lot of the people that I've had as guests, nobody's ever asked them these questions about who they are and why they do what they do. And as a consumer, that's something I really appreciate learning about a business that I'm considering working with. And so that's what started the podcast is doing that. And I think in the future, definitely there's going to be opportunity to monetize, because there are going to be some businesses that are like, yeah, we want to support what you're doing because we love it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I in March, I started a small podcast where I'm offering branding advice as I, do my errands and drive around the neighborhoods and whatnot. And I see these businesses doing things that probably, should be adjusted or not done or whatnot. Just record using Anchor on my phone, a very basic podcast saying, offering some advice, and I'll share it with them or whatever. And I wound up getting a client from it.
Nice.
I actually did, when everybody, I did a bunch of them too, the porch sessions, the family porch sessions. I did one for this business, and I was on practically the other side of a pretty big parking lot with a zoom lens, and it's a pizza place that's doing very well, and they wanted to show their support for the community as well. And so we did a nice, very short 15-minute, basically it was all the employees wearing the masks and shirts and stuff in front of the business, and it was cool. So it was I would say that it was probably harder for a podcast to get photographers business before the pandemic. In certain genres it's easier, but I think it's harder for the most part. And I feel like now that everybody's stuck sort of in one place, podcasts are on the rise. It's a little bit easier now that you could potentially make get photography sessions through a very niched podcast. So, it's great on you for starting the podcast. I'm glad to see it's going well, and I hope that it does get to the level where you can start monetizing, because that'll be obviously super helpful. Are there any other change that you've had to make in your business that I don't already know of from before that you could share? Any, whether small, whether big, anything that has changed that you've had to shift because of?
Well, my entire system of communication with clients before the pandemic, pretty much everything I did was in person. My consultations, Obviously sessions, my sales sessions, delivery of artwork, all of it was in person. I love my clients so much and I love being around them. And so I had to figure out how to make that work and still keep it on brand and still keep a great connection, whether it's just an inquiry for a consultation or it's in a sales session or anything. And that's been something I've sort of had to trial run some things. And then I feel pretty confident with where I'm at right now. I just, in September, I started having my first sales sessions from summer clients, and things were great. Things have been going really well. I'm very excited about how my process that was in person has shifted into over Zoom. So that's been a really big thing.
And have you been using just something as basic as Skype or Google Meet or Zoom, or are you using a specific tool for not only for the video communication but for the in-person sales aspect of it?
Yeah. So I use Zoom, and I actually sign in on 2 different computers because I control my Lightroom on my desktop computer, and then I do the video on my laptop. I don't have a camera for my desktop computer. I ordered one, but it was stolen off my porch. So I just sort of felt like, yeah, let's not risk that for right now. But I just I create a Lightroom collection with the final images that I'm showing. I do a slideshow that I create in Animoto, and I show that share screen with my clients. And it's the best thing because I can see them in the little window and watch their reactions.
Right. Yeah.
I had clients just this past weekend who they were each on their own laptop at their kitchen table. So I had a window of each of them, and just watching their faces as they got to see the portraits of their dog and their cat was like, it just made me forget that there's even a pandemic. It made me so happy. So I'm on 2 different computers when I'm doing my sales sessions, and they're about, they can go up to 2 hours depending on what my clients order, because I'm guiding them through every step. If they're doing a book, that's going to take a lot longer because they have to select the images for that. But it's actually been really easy. And I actually have a Post-it note here on my laptop that has like my steps of like, make sure you do this and this and this.
Yeah.
And
nice.
Yeah. And all of that. It's been really fun. And it's actually, I miss doing it in person, but it's nice to go from talking to them and making selections to then I just turn over to my other computer and start working on whatever they ordered instead of having to driving through Seattle. I'm very thankful for not having to do that right now.
Isn't it kind of funny that obviously it's horrible that we're all in this situation, and there's nothing that any of us could have done about it, but the silver linings, isn't it kind of funny that a lot of us have had to turn our typical workspace into a TV studio, right? Like we've got to put on this full production now to do things that we would normally do either in person or in an office or whatever. And I look at what the things that my daughter's kindergarten teacher are doing are things that like public speakers that have been doing it for 10 years wouldn't even be doing. They are now, but they, it's so crazy.
It's amazing. And
I feel like it obviously has changed the world forever. This is going to be going on for a very long time. And to fast forward a little bit, in a little bit, I'm going to ask you about some mental and physical health things during the pandemic. But I take karate classes, and my karate instructor has actually said that we've been doing classes virtually. Some of us will meet on either a driveway or a lawn, stay distant, and do the classes. It's getting colder now here in New Jersey, so that might go back indoors soon. But he's actually said that even once we're all together again, he's going to keep doing the virtual thing. We have students who used to be in the school that have moved away and have now rejoined because they're joining classes virtually. So wow. I think in some businesses, it's even when things start going back to normal, it's going to stick. Like there's going to be certain things that will stay.
I up until the beginning of October, I was the president of my business networking group. So it's a year-long term. And so I got about 6 months of in-person. So it's every week we meet in person. I lead the chapter in a 90-minute meeting. And then in March, we had to transition to online. And so my office has been that studio, because every week I had to lead a 90-minute meeting and be on, like, my face is the big face on the screen to 40 chapter members plus visitors. And so it's one of the things that I was ready for leadership in my chapter, but I did not know that it was going to turn into what it turned into. And I would recommend to anybody who has the opportunity to take on a leadership role in their community in some way, do it, even if you're scared, because it will teach you things that nothing else can teach you.
Right. Well said. So I was actually just about to ask you, what would you tell the photographers in your situation? That's actually a good one.
Yeah, I have another one though. One of the things that has helped me immensely, especially over the past few months, has been finding other photographers who are doing similar work as I am and meeting on a regular basis. I have 3 other pet photographers who we met through a group coaching program that we're in, and I'm actually now a coach in. We meet every Thursday, and for like 3 or 4 hours. They're on the East Coast. I'm over here in Seattle. But we meet and we talk about our businesses. We talk about a specific project that we're all working on. And it has been incredible to work through things together. If any of us has a challenge, we help each other through it. We're constantly sharing screens and going through our processes and all of these things. And I would say to any other photographers, if you don't have community around you, find it. The incredible thing about being able to do this virtually now is you don't have, if you're worried about local competition, which that's a whole other thing that I'm all about, community over competition.
Right.
But if that's something you're worried about, there are people across the country that you can connect with and build your business together.
Yeah. The last episode in this Pivot and Shift series, I had Skip Cohn on. I'm not sure. Do you know? So
I do know. Yeah.
Yeah. So that obviously has not aired yet, but by the time that your episode is out, it was out 2 weeks ago. Or wait, what episode? We're episode 115. Yeah. So he was. I think it's 114. And something you just said came up. And he made a good point. I don't remember his exact words, but he said that social distancing is not necessarily physical. It's more physical distancing. It's not really social distancing. They should have renamed it. So, So, I brought up the fact that there's no reason for the whole community over competition thing. There's no reason why, if you and I were in Seattle and we were both pet photographers, we couldn't actually get together in a location, wear masks, and stay apart to talk about things or to actually have a pet there to practice or whatever it is, So
there's can I shout out another podcast real quick?
Sure.
So the Hair of the Dog podcast, there's the Hair of the Dog Academy. It is for pet photographers. It's all about business and everything. I was recently on the podcast with my friend and colleague, Holly Cook, who is a dog photographer here in Seattle. Our episode is all about community over competition and how incredible it is to connect with people who are doing what you're doing in your area. Like, who else knows your heart better? You're doing the work that you love, someone else who's doing it. And especially if they're in your area, they're going to understand everything that's going on in the area and the types of clients and things. And when you collaborate, when you get together and you create beautiful things, like, that is what this is about. It's not about trying to beat somebody else to whatever. It's about what can we do to make things better where we live.
Yeah. I've got a random question for you because it's not very often I get to talk to a pet photographer. I don't have many in my personal circles. And Tamara Lackey is one, but she's not a pet exclusive photographer. She does photograph pets, but she also photographs, children and families. So I'm curious. I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, it's fine, that dogs are your most popular pet that you photograph. What is the second most popular and the third most popular pet that you photograph?
For me, cats and horses.
Oh,
so I mostly do dogs, cats, and horses. I love photographing all of them. I really love photographing cats because cats are just dogs want to please you. They want to trust you. They want to do things that make you happy. Cats allow you to be around them. Yeah. And so anytime I get to photograph a cat and the cat's into it, I feel like I have won the world. It's the best feeling ever.
Yeah. This weekend, actually, what my brother-in-law said, his exact words were that dogs want you to be their friend and cats let you be their friend. Yes.
It's so good.
I have two cats that I want to throw out the window. So
no,
they drive me nuts. They drive me nuts.
Are they loud meowers?
One of them is half Siamese. They're actually brother and sister from the same litter. I don't understand how he came out half Siamese, but
oh my gosh.
But yeah, he's a loud meower, and it's always when we're sleeping that he wants to wake us up and meow in our faces.
Can you impersonate it?
I can actually. I'm not sure if I'm going to.
That's actually on the Seattle Pet Collective podcast. We end every episode by asking our guest to give us their best meow, and then we end up giggling forever and then asking them like, who is that inspired by? So it's the best thing because you can't not feel joy when you meow. Like it's a very special experience.
Right. So I'll do it. I'll do it. So I have two cats. My wife and I, when we got married originally, and got the cats and bought our house and our first house, we had our mortgage guy's name was John. Our attorney's name was Paul, and our realtor's name was George. So we named our male cat Ringo, and our female cat was Lucy because Yoko as a calico cat didn't really work so well. Lucy fits her. And she's like a little princess. Like she'll just, lie on her back and let you rub her belly all day.
I love it.
But Ringo, so he will walk around and he'll have the typical meow, right? But then in the middle of the night, he does like, I don't know what that is, right? So,
I love it so much.
So
thank you for
I just meowed on my podcast. Okay. Yep. So my final question to you, I mentioned that I take karate classes, and I do that because one, I love it. I'm wearing a freaking karate t-shirt right now, if you didn't notice. I do it for the mental and physical health. It is in my opinion, it is the best combination of the two. So is there something that you do for your health, mentally, physically, or both, to deal with the stress that comes out of this pandemic?
Yeah, definitely do several things. One thing that I was doing before the pandemic was meditation and journaling every morning, just sort of getting myself in a state of being able to tap into my intuition and just guide how the week is going to go. But then, my husband and I, since we're both home, we started going on twice daily walks with our dog just in our neighborhood and actually like taking a look at what's around us and getting and saying hello to other people who are out working in their yards, and just getting connection where we can has been a huge help for sure. And then of course, going and being around animals, that's always going to make me happy.
Of course.
As my dog barks right outside.
That was like, you couldn't have planned that better.
No.
So in March, my wife is a teacher, and in March, when all hell broke loose, she had to start working from home, and the school didn't really have a plan, so she had to go with the flow. And we had to figure out a weird schedule where I basically, had both kids and didn't get any work done until about noon. She was able to cut off at noon and basically not work the rest of the day, basically until the summer. And then she had off in the summer. But so I I made a ritual of taking both kids on a walk. I'd make them both walk from our house to my wife's parents' house, which is basically, I don't know, a football field away. It's not very far. And along the way, there was this one neighbor who started also going for walks, and he has a cane, and he would walk his dog, and it was obviously to walk his dog, but he could have also just let the dog out in his fenced-in yard, but he wanted to start getting exercise. And just this week, I noticed that he's now walking further, like a lot further. Like, I was shocked to see how far he actually walked with his dog. So it's just, just sharing that, because for anybody who's like, I can't do it, you can build up to it, right? You can do whatever it is. You just have to build up to it. It took him, telling you, March, and what is today? Today is October 20th, right? That's a long time, and he's now walking very far. Oh,
that's so awesome.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you, Marika, for joining. I'm glad we were able to get to make it work.
I know.
So if you can tell the listeners, the viewers, the absolute best place to find more information about you. And of course, we'll link to all the places in the show notes too.
I think the most up-to-date fun place is definitely Instagram. My handle is at Dirtie Dog Photography, and that's DIRTIE Dog Photography.
Awesome. You can find the show notes and where to find Marika at imagely.com/podcast/115. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time.
You've been listening to the WordPress Photography Podcast. To listen to other episodes and to subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more, please visit imagely.com/podcast.